Hey, and welcome to Wild Seat. The story I'm going to tell you takes place in the heart of the desert, in a remote location where few people venture. A group of workers arrives in the area, motivated by the idea of extracting oil. With the task incomplete, the workers decide to return home, and the company sends a plane to take them back. The pilot in charge of the flight, Frank, is an experienced and self-confident man. The passengers prepare for takeoff, but suddenly a huge storm approaches. Frank is faced with a dilemma. If they return, they will have to wait for more fuel to be provided, which could take some time. But if they decide to continue, they must fly through the storm. In the end, he decides to fly upwards and go through the storm. But due to the weight of the plane, the sandstorm damages one of the engines. Frank knows they must make an emergency landing, but the storm is so strong that he can't see anything. Finally, he lands the plane, but during the process, a rock hits the rear of the plane and kills one of the passengers. As they try to exit the plane, it falls, and 2 more passengers die. Trapped in the middle of the desert, the group struggles to survive. They know they must walk 200 miles to get out of the desert, but the extreme heat of July is a difficult obstacle to overcome. A man from the group suggests that he could walk to the nearest village to get help, but Frank convinces him that it's too dangerous. However, during a nighttime storm, a man gets up to use the bathroom and is swept away by the wind. The rest of the group tries to find him, but the odds are against them. Tension rises when one of the girls in the group approaches Frank for help and comfort. "Will anyone come to save us?" she asked, but Frank could do nothing but stare at her and tell her that they were alone in the middle of the desert, with no radio signal, not enough food, and no hope of being found. 2 men decided that they would go look for water, but Frank warned them that they wouldn't find anything in the middle of the desert. The struggle for water ensued, and the fight ended with the water wasted on the sand. But then, a man named Helio joined the group and proposed an idea that seemed crazy: to build a new plane from the wreckage of the broken plane. The other members of the group were shocked by Elliot's proposal, but Frank knew it was an absurd idea. How could they build a plane with the few resources they had? Who was Elliot, and how did he know so much about planes? Tension and mistrust grew among the group members, but Frank decided to search for another missing companion and discovered something terrifying. The man had been shot dead, and his body was naked. Despite the doubts, Elliot convinced some of the group members to try and build a new plane and escape from there. However, they realized that the intense daytime heat prevented them from making progress, so they decided to work during the night. While welding one afternoon, an accident occurred. Sparks accidentally fell on the fuel they had stored, ruining it completely. They were left with a limited amount of fuel and were forced to work during the day. When they finally managed to attach the wing, one of the men stepped out of the plane and shouted that the plane was ready for takeoff. The group erupted into a celebration full of dancing and joy, clearing the sand to prepare a path for their beloved aircraft. They called it Phoenix, and although there was still much work to be done, the group felt confident in their ability to finish the project. However, one day a lightning storm took everyone by surprise. Everyone ran for cover, but Helio stayed by his plane to protect it. Frank went to get him to pull him out of there. One night, the group saw some people sleeping in tents. Using a microscope, they were smugglers who called themselves the Night Seekers. Even though they robbed the people who came there, Frank decided to ask them for help to get water. Elliot tried to stop him, but Frank ignored him. With some of his friends, Frank went to look for water, and as they approached, the smugglers attacked them. There was a fight in which one of Frank's friends was seriously injured and another was killed. Despite the sadness they felt, Frank and his group managed to defend themselves and killed the smugglers, except for one who managed to escape. Despite the trauma they had suffered, Frank decided not to kill the man who had fled and brought him back to his friends. However, when Elliot arrived and found out what had happened, he became very angry and blamed Frank for the incident. Frank, feeling attacked, defended himself and punched Elliot, knocking him to the ground. Elliot had set a condition. If Frank apologized to him, he would be willing to work with them. Eventually, Frank apologized to Elliot, and one day, while looking through the microscope, they discovered that the smuggler who had fled had returned with his members. If you're enjoying the video, please hit the like button. It only takes a second and helps me out a ton. Although the smugglers were armed, Frank and his companions had all their weapons after having taken them away. The smugglers knew that the group had little food and were waiting for the moment to strike, while Frank and his companions worked enthusiastically to build a plane that would take them out of there. Frank found a book that contained airplane models and realized that the models Elliot used to make were for toy planes. While the plane they were building could fly, when the group presented their airplane, one of the members accused Elliot of having deceived them and pointed a gun at his head. Despite this, Elliot remained confident that their plane would fly. Meanwhile, a sandstorm was approaching, and the plane they had built started to take off gradually, giving them hope that they could finally escape the desert. After the storm passed, the plane lost power, leaving the group hopeless, but Frank told them the plane would eventually take off. They pulled the plane out of the sand and took it to a sand-free location. The plane takes off but stops after a while and then starts again after hearing the sound of the engine. The smugglers who had been hiding there arrive on horseback with their weapons to kill them. Everyone gets on the plane and hangs from it. But the plane's design didn't allow for any seating, so everyone hangs upside down, and the plane begins to move. The raiders shoot at them, but the bullets don't reach them. However, the plane eventually crashes into a ditch, making the smugglers believe they have triumphed in their endeavor. But suddenly, the plane rises from the ashes like a phoenix and takes off again. The survivors celebrate the success of their feat after weeks of struggle in the desert. In the last scene, some people are shown contacting their families, and it is revealed that Frank has founded his own airline called Phoenix. Additionally, Elliot's crucial role is highlighted, with his picture appearing in a newspaper that reads, "On Wing." In this way, they enjoy a happy life. But the adventure doesn't end here. I'll see you in the next one. Let's go!